Last example. I know you guys are sad, but this is what I would consider a super fun problem. So if we look at this, you have 2 cosine squared theta and cosine squared theta, and then no cosine. So any ideas what we're going to have to do with this one? This one gets like a super big smiley face. So I don't have a ton of room to work right there. I am going to write this on another piece of paper, and maybe some of you already kind of picked up where I'm going with this, but what we're going to have to do with this one is we're going to have to factor it. With our 2 parentheses, some of you guys have gotten really good at factoring. This looks scary, I'm not going to lie there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this. Instead of the cosines, I'm going to put x's there. So this would be the same as 2x squared minus x minus 1. So if I'm going to factor this, this would be the one where you take the first and the last term. So 2 times 1. And that's going to give us negative 2x squared. You'd have to come up with 2 terms that you could multiply to get negative 2 that would add up to negative 1. So that'd be negative 2 and 1. I put the x's there, but then you're going to write this out into 4 terms. So you've got 2x squared minus 2x plus 1x minus 1. So you've got your 4 terms there. And then you would factor by grouping. So the GCF in the first group would be 2x, and you're left with x minus 1. The GCF in this group would be a 1, and you're left with x minus 1. So this just factored into 2x plus 1, x minus 1. Now, go back to the original problem here. It didn't have x's in it, it had cosines in it. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2 cosine theta plus 1. I just rewrote the x as cosine. And then my other factor would be cosine theta minus 1. If I were to FOIL this out, I would get 2 cosine squared theta minus cosine theta minus 1. All right, so we have to factor that. So I showed you there how to factor it. Go back to my notes here. And there I factored it. You don't have to do all of this work, especially those of you guys who've gotten pretty good at factoring. I'm going to warn you in pre-AP pre-calc, they're not going to show all that. But 2 cosine times cosine is 2 cosine squared. 1 times 1 is 1, and then you'd have to figure out the signs. All right. What we're going to do from here is we're going to set both factors equal to 0. So I've got 2 cosine theta plus 1 equals 0. Let's just do that first. So I'm going to subtract the 1 from both sides. So I've got 2 cosine theta equals negative 1. Divide both sides by 2. So I have cosine theta is negative 1/2. Remember, cosine is my x value. So where are my x values going to be negative? If I graph this, x is going to be negative as we go to the left. That's where my x values are negative. So I'm going to have this half of the bow tie that's going to the left. Remember, I want my x value to be negative 1/2. So if my x is negative 1/2, that means that my y would have to be radical 3 over 2. So I need the reference angle that goes with that. So if you want to look here, my x value is 1/2 when I have a pi over 3 or a 60-degree angle. You could have also done the hand, put this down, there's the 1, that's your 60-degree angle. So that's pi over 3 in both of those. All right, so if I want this angle, it's not just the super easy one, I didn't give you the first quadrant one. This is pi over here. What would you change that to so you could work with it? Because it's in thirds. 3 pi over 3. So up here, it doesn't quite make it to 3 pi over 3. So you would have to do 3 pi over 3 minus pi over 3 to give you 2 pi over 3. There's one answer. The next angle goes past 3 pi over 3. So to get that angle, you'd have to do 3 pi over 3 plus pi over 3, and that would give you 4 pi over 3. So there's 2 of our answers. Theta is 2 pi over 3 and 4 pi over 3. We're not done yet though. because I didn't even touch this second factor yet. So now I'm going to set that equal to 0. So cosine theta minus 1 equals 0. That's going to give me cosine theta is equal to 1. All right, remember cosine is my x value. Where do you have x values that equal 1? You can get out your quadrant here. So look at just the x values. 0, 1/2, radical 2 over 2, radical 3 over 2. There's where x is 1. It's going to be one of those quadrantal angles. So if you want to graph it and try to figure out, you can look at all 4 of them just to kind of double check. Here, this is the point 1, 0. So I know for sure that that one's going to work because x is 1 right there. Up here, this is the ordered pair. It goes over 0, up 1, x is 0. Nope, I don't want that one. Here, negative 1, 0. It wasn't plus or minus, so I can't use this. That's not, it doesn't want negative 1. And then obviously down here, I'm going to have another 0. So the only one that's going to work is this. So that's a 0 degree angle right there. If I was okay going around a full circle, 2 pi would also work. But the only other extra angle is 0, 0 pi. So you got 3 answers on this one. And you guys survived. This is so sad. All right. If you have questions, let me know.